Broadcasting from the 72nd floor of First Canadian Place in the heart of Toronto's financial district, this is #Finance, the podcast that profiles innovative entrepreneurs and thought leaders operating in the public markets. Presented to you by the CSE, the Exchange for Entrepreneurs.
Welcome to #Finance. I'm your host, Barrington Miller. And today, on top of the 72nd floor of First Canadian Place, I'm here with Dr. Raza Bokhari from FSD Pharma, symbol HUGE. Welcome to the Canadian Securities Exchange.
Well, thank you, Barrington, for having me on your show. It was an exciting day for us today. We rang the opening bell.
I was going to say, well, why was it exciting?
As I said, as I was keen to talk to your listeners and viewers that we were proud to come with the FSD Pharma family to ring the opening bell. And I have had the honor to ring the bell on NASDAQ, but there you hit an electronic button. This was quite a workout.
For the people that got to watch it on Instagram Live this morning, it was a stress test of the bell. You rang it harder than we've ever seen anybody ring it, and we love the enthusiasm, and of course we welcome it. Now, jumping right in, it's a big deal to be the first CSE listed company that is now dually listed on CSE and NASDAQ. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and why NASDAQ? And I know it's not your first experience with NASDAQ, but I'll let you talk.
Well, again, it's a unique privilege for us that we have now become one of 12 Canadian domicile companies that are in cannabis-related business and are also trading on a major U.S. exchange. For us to become the first CSE company to be dual listed, it's a special privilege. We came on the scene nearly 2 years ago in May of 2018 by listing on CSE and by also at the time raising the most amount of initial capital of $53 million. And we were overwhelmingly welcomed by the investors and had to build the largest liquidity pool. And I believe that we have over 6 billion shares that have traded on CSE since we started trading. So all of that gave us the thrust that we get the opportunity to list on a U.S. exchange. There are several qualifying factors that you have to satisfy. And one of them is that there is no direct plant-based cannabis business in the United States, direct or indirect. They should be an independent board represented by majority independent board members. And last but not the least, the financial health of the company. In these Canadian companies, we are very fortunate that we carry no long-term debt on our books, and that makes us financially more viable, relatively speaking, than others. So we have a lot more to do. Our work has just begun, but nonetheless, it's a great start.
Well, that's fascinating, and it gives our viewers and our audience a little bit of insight into the NASDAQ process, because of course, being in Canada, you hear about the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, and what's it really like, and how big is that mountain to climb in order to list. But you've shown that not only can you go through the process, but you can do it, and you can do it while still being listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange. It's a really, really big deal for us as well.
Yeah, we have a very large following of retail investors. I think over 39,000 which are predominantly from Canada and the remainder of North America. So we are very proud and we are very grateful for their confidence in us, for their trust in us, and for being with us through thick and thin. We also, as a company, have made some very compelling efforts to transform into a specialty biotech pharmaceutical research and development company to realize the real potential, to unlock the real potential of the cannabinoid molecule, we must demonstrate their efficacy and their safety and bioavailability through FDA-approved clinical trials. And we have doubled down on that effort. And that is also was one of the, I believe, an important reason for NASDAQ to accept us, and for companies to get attention of institutional grade investors and institutional investors beyond the solid retail based investors that we have. It's an important thing for companies that are that operate in capital markets to also be what I call the big ocean, which is either on NASDAQ or NYSE.
Now, you touched on a few things, one of them being clinical trials. What exactly are you looking for when you're doing these clinical trials? What are you hoping to achieve, or results to find or not find?
So FSD Pharma finalized at the end of Q2 of 2019 an acquisition of a U.S.-based specialty pharmaceutical company called Prismic Pharmaceutical. Through that acquisition, we acquired that acquisition we did for $17.5 million solely by use of our stock. So that also is a validation that our shareholders' strength is quite well, that we were able to, there was no cash that was transacted in that, and the cash is deployed in advancing the trials. But through that acquisition, we acquired worldwide license, except Italy and Spain, to develop and hopefully bring commercial prescription drugs, which are FDA approved, on a naturally occurring fatty acid, palmitoyl ethylenamide, in its micronized formulation. And this ultra micro PEA is a compound, a synthetic compound that acts exactly in the same fashion as CBD acts as a medicinal compound, and provides countless benefits, which is one of the cannabinoids benefits are, which is part of the CBD component. So this PEA has a very similar action that, like CBD, that target the CB2 receptors of the endocannabinoid system, and through its property of reducing inflammation, it has the potential to provide better treatment outcome for certain diseases of the central nervous system, diseases of the skin, also autoimmune diseases of the gastrointestinal tract, as well as musculoskeletal system. So there is a wide potential opportunity. However, this is all a cash intense or a capital intense exercise. We have a focused effort. Our first step is to prove, based on FDA guidelines, that this compound, this naturally occurring compound, is safe. And we are happy to report that we received our formal sign-off from the Ethics Committee in Australia, which marks the official commencement of the clinical phase 1 in-human safety and tolerability study. So that is the first step that you have to satisfy before you can do a deeper dive through phase 2A and then phase 2A and B to see efficacy in certain disease conditions. So this is a 1,000-mile journey.
Yes.
We have taken first some very compelling and strong steps.
Well, that is fascinating, and this is something that can help quality of life. There's so many doors that this opens, and I'm sure there's countless people that would thank you and will thank you later on, not only in this generation but the next. I knew that your company was getting big when I spoke to. There were two instances. One was my son plays hockey, and one of the dads came up to me because he knows I work for a stock exchange, and I might know some things about stocks. And he whispered, he's like, "Hey, have you heard of this company? It's a cannabis company. I was like, oh, I've heard of a few. It's called Huge. I think they're going to be really big. And I'm like, why are you whispering? yes, I know them. And another time, I was just taking an Uber, and the driver, we just had normal chit chat, like, what do you do, or where are you coming from? And he's like, I bought some stock. I don't know if you've heard of this company. It's called Huge, but the symbol might be, or it might be called FSD, but the symbol's Huge. But I have some. Have you ever heard it? I think it's pretty good. And that's when it really hit me, because we're in this environment where, of course, we deal with stocks and companies, but then you go out into the real world, and people are talking about it, and that's when that's when I knew, at least, this is a serious operation. It was awesome.
Well, that is very satisfying and inspiring to hear. Our stock ticker is Huge. It is a huge potential opportunity, but it's also a huge responsibility. But I am happy to report also that also on NASDAQ, our stock ticker is also Huge.
That's great for investors.
If nobody gets confused, whichever exchange you would want to trade. And that also is something distinctive or unique about our company. Also in this class of 12 companies, which are Canadian domicile companies, we're the only company that has the same ticker on both exchanges. So we're very happy that we were able to do that. But our work has just begun. We have a long way to go to create sustainable shareholder value. And I hope we see more peaks and less valleys in our journey.
Yes, I would totally agree. Now, how did you get here? How did you, the doctor, get to be here today? What's your path?
I am an American of Pakistani descent. I came to this land of the free, the home of the brave, through Toronto. Nearly 29 years ago or 28 years ago, out of medical school, to pursue residency training, and which is the path that I took. And then midway, I spun and went to business school. And for a lack of a better word to define, realized the American dream rather early and became people call me a serial entrepreneur. I think I am an eccentric entrepreneur, but I have been very fortunate in realizing the American dream and have built companies in the healthcare space from ground up, and have sold them to other public companies, to private equity funds, and also to strategic buyers. And my FSD journey began by my association with the S of the FSD that I know, which is one of the founders, and I have known him for many years. And he had invited me to be his nominee as an independent director when we got listed on CSE. I also made a small investment in the company at the time. And eventually was very quickly drafted by the founders that I pursue the dream of the company to be duly listed on a major U.S. exchange.
Wow, that's amazing. And
so I was elevated first in the fall of 2018 as the chairman of the board, and then subsequently became the interim CEO, and then the permanent CEO before the end of second quarter of 2019. And I have been fortunate that the founders of the company chose me to execute on their vision, which I was able to do with the help of them primarily, as well as our other board members, one of which is a former member of United States Congress, Steve Bouye, a highly celebrated and a world-renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, Dr. Larry Kaiser, who also just until recently was the chairman and CEO of Temple Health System, which is a $3 billion plus health system in the United States, and two other CEOs, one of the 12 largest accounting firm, and another one that is the CEO of a CRO, and a Washington insider, my good friend David Urban, who I think ran Pennsylvania and delivered Pennsylvania for President Trump. So we have a remarkably...
You have some heavy hitters. That's what you have.
And they all believe commonly, while they have a diverse opinion on the recreational and medicinal use of cannabis, but they all have a common interest that the real promise of the cannabinoid molecule, which is larger than what we imagine, is through running clinical trials and getting these FDA-approved prescription-based medications, and that is how it will. This cannabis ecosystem, which is very exciting, began and got its life from Canada, and through the Canadian legislative process, is going to be able to sustain the test of time. So we are excitedly looking to advance this trial work and hopefully are able to produce some good results.
Well, with that, we will conclude our podcast. I just want to say on behalf of the Canadian Securities Exchange, thank you, and thank you to the listeners and our viewers. This has been an episode of Hashtag Finance. I'm your host, Barrington Miller, and I was here with Dr. Raza Bokhari from FSD Pharma, symbol HUGE. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrington, for having me on your show. I hope you call me back again.
Oh, I will.